All right, today we are jumping into a book that has seriously changed the game for so many people, Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's all about this incredibly simple but powerful framework for getting just 1% better every single day. Look, if you've ever struggled to make a new habit stick, this explainer is absolutely for you. So, let's kick things off with a question I think we can all relate to. You know the drill, right? You start January with all this fire and motivation, you're gonna hit the gym every day, you're eating clean, you're finally starting that side hustle, but then life happens, and a few weeks later, you're kinda right back where you started. It's this super frustrating cycle, but what if the reason we fail has nothing to do with what you think it does? And this is the core idea from James Clear that is such a game changer. He says we don't fail because we're lazy or because we lack willpower. Nope. We fail because we have the wrong system for change. See, we're all so focused on our goals, like, I want to lose 20 pounds, instead of building the systems that make those kinds of outcomes pretty much inevitable. So, okay, if goals aren't the answer, then what is? Well, it all starts with this philosophy of making tiny, almost invisible improvements. Let me show you how this plays out in a really remarkable real-world story. For an entire century, the British professional cycling team was, well, they were a bit of a joke. In all that time, they'd only won a single gold medal and had never, ever won the Tour de France. Their performance was actually so bad that one of the top bike manufacturers refused to sell them bikes because they were worried it would hurt their brand if other pros saw the British team using their gear. Ouch. But then, they hired a guy named Dave Brailsford, and his entire strategy was built on this one idea, the aggregation of marginal gains. The concept was actually super simple. If you break down absolutely everything that goes into riding a bike and then just improve each little thing by 1%, you're going to get a massive increase in performance when you put it all back together. And they went deep. I mean, this wasn't just about things like more comfortable bike seats. They looked at everything. They literally hired a surgeon to teach the team the right way to wash their hands, to cut down on colds. They tested different massage gels. They figured out the perfect pillow and mattress for each rider to get the best possible sleep. They even painted the inside of their team truck white just so they could spot tiny bits of dust that might mess with the finely tuned bikes. Now, obviously, none of these things on their own was a magic bullet. But together, they started to compound. You can think of it like compound interest, but for self-improvement. A tiny gain today feels like nothing, but over time, that growth becomes absolutely explosive. And get this, within 5 years, the British cycling team was dominating the sport. They won 60% of the gold medals at the 2008 Olympics and went on to win multiple Tour de France titles. That right there is the power of atomic habits. So, how do we actually apply this to our own lives? Well, the first secret is to understand that self-control is kind of a myth. The real key? It's designing your environment for success. So, back during the Vietnam War, researchers made a pretty shocking discovery. Over 15% of U.S. soldiers stationed there had become addicted to heroin. Now, you can imagine, the government was bracing for a massive addiction epidemic when all these soldiers returned home. But what happened next? It completely turned our understanding of addiction on its head. The researchers just waited and watched. And what they found was just stunning. When the soldiers came back to the States, 9 out of 10 of them just quit overnight. Now compare that to a typical drug user, where a full 90% will relapse after coming home from rehab. The difference wasn't some superhuman willpower, it was the environment. In Vietnam, all the cues for drug use were there: the incredible stress, the easy access, the friends who were also using. Back home, all those cues were just gone.
And this quote from the book just nails it. The people we think of as having amazing self-control, they're not superheroes, they're just better architects. They design their lives so they don't need to use heroic willpower in the first place. They're proactive. They remove the temptations for bad habits and make the cues for good habits totally unavoidable.
And here's the thing, you have that exact same power. You want to read more? Don't just hope you'll feel like it later, put a book right on your pillow. Want to eat healthier? Get that bowl of cookies off the counter and put a bowl of fresh fruit there instead. It's all about designing your world so the right choice is always the easy choice.
Okay, so architecting your environment is huge, but the second secret is, I think, even more profound, because it gets to the very core of who we are. True, lasting behavior change is identity change.
Most of us, when we try to change, we set outcome-based goals. We focus on what we want to achieve. But Clear makes the case for identity-based habits, where you focus on who you wish to become. The goal isn't just to, say, stop biting your nails. It's to become the type of person who takes pride in their appearance. It's a subtle but massive shift.
A perfect example of this is a guy named Brian Clark, an entrepreneur who'd been biting his fingernails for his entire life. And he tried everything to stop. You know, all the willpower tricks, the nasty tasting polish, but nothing ever stuck. And then he tried something totally different.
He went and got a manicure. And for the first time in his adult life, his nails actually looked nice. The manicurist even said something like, "Wow, you have really healthy nails." And in that one moment, something just clicked. He wasn't a guy trying not to bite his nails anymore. He was now someone who had nice nails. He felt this new sense of pride, and that pride became the real motivation. His old identity as a nail biter was replaced by someone who takes care of his hands, and he never chewed them again.
And that's really the engine of lasting change. When a behavior is all wrapped up in your identity, whether it's being a runner, a writer, or just someone with well-kept hands, you will fight to protect it. The motivation isn't about some result you're chasing anymore. It becomes about proving to yourself a truth you already believe.
So, with these two massive ideas in our back pocket, designing your environment and changing your identity, where do you even start? Well, it's actually way simpler than you think.
First, forget about the outcome for a second. Instead, ask yourself, who is the type of person that could get the result I want? A healthy person? A consistent writer? A mindful person? Then you just move to step 2. You prove it to yourself with small wins. Every single action you take is like casting a vote for the type of person you want to become. Meditating for 1 minute? That's a vote for being a mindful person. Doing just one push-up? That's a vote for being an athletic person. These tiny wins are how you prove your new identity to yourself.
You don't need to overhaul your entire life tomorrow. You really don't. You just need to cast one small vote today. So the real question is, what's your vote going to be? What tiny 1% improvement can you make right now to start building the identity you truly want?